And joining us now, editor of The New Republic, Michael Tomasky. Michael, your new piece for the magazine is entitled "The Case for Hoping the GOP Nominates Donald Trump." And in it, you write, in part, quote, "I'm no Republican, but I do have a rooting interest here. The responsible position among non-Republicans is to hope Trump does not win the party's nomination in 2024 for two reasons. The first and more obvious one is that if he's the nominee, there's a risk he may become president again, and we shouldn't play with that kind of fire when it comes to our democracy. The second is a more broadly civic-minded one, simply that the sooner our body politic rejects the pathogen that is Trump, the better. I'm quite sympathetic to both arguments, but here's the case for wanting Trump to win the Republican nomination. It's pretty straightforward. He's become the most beatable Republican out there by far.
You know what he does?
What does he do?
He loses.
He loses, and
Mike
also
Barnicle, he just loses.
His win was like it was like one moment in time.
One moment in time, and he said that himself.
He did. He admitted that.
He admitted.
He would have never won on any other day.
Yeah. So anyway, Mike Barnicle is with us in New York. Michael, and has the first question. Mike.
Michael Tomasky, I certainly understand where you're coming from on this, Donald Trump being beatable. But why would you want to put the country through a carnival of chaos and destruction? Because that's what the man brings every single day. Why put the country through that when you could have a more even matchup, President Biden or whoever the Democrat is running against another candidate? It'd be kind of more refreshing.
It's a fair question, Mike. And, there are days when I take the other view. But on balance, I take the view that I expressed in this column and that Mika quoted from. It would be a carnival of chaos. There's no question about that. But he'd lose. He'd lose. He drew a 1 in a million inside straight in 2016. Running against a candidate who had bad approval numbers and whom Republicans had spent 25 years convincing Americans was evil and corrupt and so on. He wouldn't have that opportunity again. He, as you guys have documented, as Joe has said many times on this show, he has lost. I write he has a losing streak that rivals the Washington Generals, if we remember who they were. Yeah. And he'd lose to Joe Biden or probably any other Democrat. And then, not only would he lose, I think he'd get drubbed. And then, after that, maybe, knocking on wood, the Republican Party would finally be forced to go into a period of self-examination from which it might emerge again as a sane and reasonable conservative party.
Michael, Adrienne Elrod here. Your piece is outstanding. Look, I will say this. As somebody who worked on Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign, we have certainly learned to never underestimate Donald Trump, even when he's lower. But I have a question about the primary. I'm curious, there's been some speculation that if Donald Trump had a 3 or 4 way primary, that would be harder for him to overcome. But if he had, a 16, 18 way primary, like he had at least starting out in 2015 going to 2016, that he would sort of blast through and barrel through and become the de facto nominee. I mean, how do you see that? Do you see a crowded primary being, less or more beneficial for him this time around versus a smaller primary if he in fact stays in the race?
Yeah, it's a great point. And, the more candidates, the better for Trump, I suppose, because it splits the vote more and more. I went back recently and looked at the 2016 Republican primary results and just did a little rough math. If you look at the first 4 states, the early states, the really important tone-setting states, right? He lost Iowa, of course, to Ted Cruz, but he won the next 3. And he won them with an average of 34.3% of the vote. Now, what does he have his support among Republicans today? Well, off the top of my head, I would say about 35% of the party seems like they're still strongly committed to Donald Trump, something around that. So in a multi-candidate field, 35% is plenty. But in a smaller field, it's not. And the one difference between 2024 and 2016 that I would bet on is that I think the field might winnow faster. The Republicans stayed in for a long time because nobody could quite believe that Donald Trump was going to be their nominee. But I think it'll winnow down faster, could become a one-on-one race faster in which Trump would have a lot of trouble.
All right, editor of the New Republic, Michael Tomasky, thank you very much. And Adrian Elrod, thank you as well for